Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Cutting Edge Figure Skating Podcast. My name is Kim Dunaway, and in this episode, I will be doing my last season's best list of the 2023-24 season, and it is the women. And this list took me forever because I had to watch a lot of programs to get to a top 10. I had a few programs singled out throughout the season, but definitely not as many as I had for ice dance and pairs and men. I did have a lot of help from some listeners. So definitely some of the programs that people suggested also made the list. But also I feel like there were a lot of really good programs in women's skating this year. Like I could make a totally different top 10 list multiple times and it would be completely justified because there were a lot of really good programs. A lot of programs I felt like were kind of on the same level. I think the jump from good to great, there aren't as many great programs, but there are quite a few really good programs this season. And it's interesting because we're right in the middle of an Olympic cycle, and you're typically going to see people in those first couple of seasons after the Olympics sort of try a few things out, see kind of what works, and then ultimately they're building up to the Olympics 2 years from now. And so I think next season we're going to start to see maybe a few less routines more out of the box and people sort of returning back maybe to sort of their wheelhouse a little bit more. But I certainly enjoy seeing skaters really bring some new pieces of music to the table. Of course, we obviously had a lot of war horses and lots of similar pieces of music that we always have for sure. But ultimately, I did land on 10 programs for the women as well as a couple of junior programs as well. So, I'll get started with a few honorable mentions. And so I have three US ladies who I'm giving honorable mentions to. And the first is Isabel Levito, and this is her short program to the basically the same snake music that was made famous by Madison Chalk and Evan Bates in their snake dance routine from the 2019-2020 season. And Isabeau debuted this short program and used it in the first half of the season and abandoned ship and went with a different short program for the second half of the season. So ultimately, it did not end up on my top 10 list, despite the fact that I really, really enjoyed this program because ultimately, turns out Isabeau didn't like the program. They basically sort of gave her a different kind of style than what she was used to. And it turned out to be a style that she wasn't really comfortable with. And so they ended up going with a different short program for nationals and for worlds. And it turned out to be a good vehicle for her. That being said, I still really enjoyed the snake dance. I love the intricacy, the difficulty that they brought. And I love seeing when skaters go out of their wheelhouse and really start to stretch themselves. But ultimately, if the skater didn't like the program, I'm not going to put it on the top 10 list, but I am giving it an honorable mention. I've got another honorable mention going out to Sonia Hilmer, who is largely a U.S. skater that skates domestically. You don't really see her skate internationally, but she choreographs programs herself. She has a really fantastic skill set. She can spin in both directions. She can even jump in both directions. She has a famous triple Salchow, double Salchow combination that she will do, with the double Salchow being in a different spinning in a different way than the triple Salchow did. It doesn't always work, but it's such a cool combination. It's just really great footwork. And this Avatar Last Airbender free skate that she does. I also really love her Matrix short program too. But in this program, the costume and the hair is just on point. She's got some really unique spin positions. I do think that she lacks a little bit of polish and some speed overall, but just she brings something very different to the table. And I think she could totally kill like a Mortal Kombat routine or any kind of samurai warrior piece. So I had to give her an honorable mention. And I've got another one going out to Star Andrews for her short program to Alien Superstar by Beyonce. Just a really entertaining program. And I think that Star is a really underrated performer. Probably because she doesn't always jump really well, but artistically, she's actually pretty talented and she can do any number of different types of styles of programs. I mean, last year we saw her doing like a French famous French piece, right? And this year she's doing, an R&B piece in her short program and really shows a lot of range. And I just thought that this was a really entertaining program. And of course, the hot pink outfit was also just really fantastic. Also, I've got a honorable mention going out to just the entirety of Team Japan. The I don't think there was a single bad program out of any of the Japanese ladies this season. So obviously there's not room for all of them to make the list. And I certainly thought some programs were better than others, but just really fantastic both at the junior level and at the senior level. I mean, in the juniors, with Amy Nakai and Ikura Kushida, really strong programs. And then in the seniors, we had a lot of really good programs coming out of Mona Chiba and Wakaba and Rion Sumiyoshi and Rino Matsuke. Just overall, Team Japan was so amazingly strong this season with their content. And so I'm giving them also an honorable mention. All right, if we get into my two favorite junior programs of the season, for the short program, I selected Minso Kwan's short program to basically like a Bollywood mix. This program is just so fun. I also really loved Ikura Kashida's Red Violin short program, and I also really liked Mao Shimada's short program. But ultimately, Minso Kwan's it was really unique with the Bollywood. She brings so much joy and energy to the performance. If you have not seen this routine, I definitely encourage you to go look it up. The good thing about the juniors is they're not geo-blocked. You can easily find their performances, especially when she performed this at the Grand Prix final. It was probably when it was performed at its best. Just a lot of personality, a lot of fun, and we don't see a lot of Bollywood programs. And then for the best junior free skate, also going to a South Korean skater, and this is to Jia Shin, who this particular program is to Not About Angels. It's choreographed by David Wilson. She still has like that junior spunk, but you can also really see her skating skills. She has a really nice presence on the ice. And I think that she looks very close to senior. And she is one who's got one more year in juniors. And then the Olympic season, she will be senior eligible, and it will be super interesting to see how she does. She's had a lot of success on the junior level, and she is one that's been a victim of the new age rule, but she will be able to be eligible for the Olympics. And she skates like this, she's definitely going to be a contender. It's a really, really fantastic program. All right. So moving on from the juniors, let's get into my top 10 for the senior ladies. So at number 10, I have Laura Naki Gutman of Italy, and this is her short program. I have to say, there are a lot of short programs on the list this year. Not as many free skates, a lot of short programs. So this one is to Kiss of Death, Le Serpent, and War Dance. It's just a really cool pieces of music that kind of come together. I think the costume really works, including like the band around her arm, like the back piece is just really stunning. I love that she spreads her spins out in this program. I complimented a couple of men skaters in my men's season best list for doing this too. It just sort of gives the program a little bit better flow when they're not doing multiple spins back to back. I think she has some really cool positions in both her sit spin and in her combo spin. I think it's just a really great concept and a really great program. In general, like as an individual skater, I think Laura lacks a little bit of finesse and a little bit of finish. And so there are times when I watch this program that I wish I could see somebody else do it, just to see like somebody that could really perform it to its absolute best and perform to their fingertips. But it's such a really interesting, different program, and it made my top 10 list. Barely, but it made it. All right. Number 9 is another short program, and this is Nina Pinzerone of Belgium, and this is her short program to Charms. I felt like she was underscored a lot this season for really both of her programs. She had two really strong programs in general, but for me, the short program stands out just a little bit more. Part of it was it's just her second year in seniors, really the first full year because she was injured a lot in the fall last season. She also has a lot of under rotation calls at times that causes her technical score to be a bit lower. But I felt like in general in the second mark, she was a bit lower too, because if you look at her performance, she has really great flexibility. She's got a nice toe point. All the elements are there. Nice, strong footwork sequence. I love like the split jump that she does into her triple loop. I think it's a really pretty program that really shows off a lot of her strong points and her capabilities and just showcases her really well. And so this program also made the list. Number 8 was a bit of surprise to me. It's one of those when I'm watching like program after program, and then I get to one and I'm like, this is better than what I remember. And this is Rinka Watanabe's Free Skate, and it's kind of a mix of different pieces of music. I'm probably going to butcher some names here. Brotjor by Olafur Arnald, Goliath by Woodkid Meeting Laura, which is from the Perfume, The Story of a Murderer soundtrack, which we saw Christina and Anthony use some music for that soundtrack as well. And then also a piece called November by Max Richter. So a lot of really random pieces of music. Her dress is totally random as well. Now, at the beginning of the season, she had some kind of like fur or scarf around her neck. It really didn't make sense. So even though the second figure skating dress doesn't really make sense either, it at least made more sense than the first dress, right? The first dress, I'm like, I do not understand what this program is. And she's one that was a bit up and down kind of all season, but it's really a cool program. There's quite a bit of performance in here. The choreography isn't forgotten at all. It's there from start to finish. And even if the jumps weren't always there, you could still see the strength of the program. And so this is something that I really enjoyed. Now, I also really enjoyed her short program to the Avatar piece, but I feel like the music was a little bit better than the performance in that particular program. So I went with her Free Skate, which I feel like was the stronger vehicle, and I felt like was one of the best programs that we saw this season. And so if you saw it earlier in the season, it definitely wasn't at its best. I think it was probably at its best at Four Consonants, which is the last time that we saw it. But I think you could definitely still see the elements of it even before then in the Grand Prix when it wasn't quite as strong as it could be, but still just really, I think, an underrated program when you look at the totality of the season as a whole. And 7, I have another Japanese skater, and this is Yuna Aoki. And this is her short program to Young and Beautiful from the Great Gatsby soundtrack. She's another one that had a really good free skate that I also could have picked. It was one that she choreographed herself. I ultimately felt like the short program just kind of flowed a little bit better. I love the ending of her free skate, but I feel like a lot of the program in the free skate is just jump, 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 jump. And while she has this beautiful flow and beautiful arms in the free skate that you see in the short program, I just feel like it's showcased a little bit better in the short program. Her skating in general just feels very light and effortless. Her arms are just really, really lovely. This program is just very captivating. It just kind of looks like she's dancing on ice. You just kind of can't help but smile when you watch it. Of course, the music is really, really fantastic. Lana Del Rey is who sings this song. And that always helps when the music can sort of bring you in and then the performance matches it. That's when you really have a really fantastic program. So kudos to Yuna for having 2 really good programs this season. And like I said, you could have gone either way, but ultimately I went with a short program because that music will get stuck in my head big time. All right. At number 6, I have Yellen Kim of South Korea, and this was her short program, another short program, to Fields of Lavender. And it's unfortunate that Yellen, we didn't get to see her at all in the second half of the season. She really, really had a tough time in the fall. We never really got an explanation if it was an injury, if it was just in her head, exactly what was going on with her this season. It was definitely unfortunate, but even so, this short program was absolutely beautiful. She definitely struggled with the free skate more so than she did with the short program. It's for me, it's one of the best programs that she has. It really shows what great flow that she has. That just beautiful choreography, like in that first minute of the program. There's so much attention to the detail of the choreography in this program. I think so much of the time, and I've said it before, but I'll say it again, a lot of times, a lot of skaters, single skaters, pair skaters are like this too. They just go out and they get all the jump elements done very, very soon. There's almost no choreography and no chance to really connect with the program. And then they try to bring on the performance in the second half. And it just doesn't it's just not as effective as it is when the performance starts with that first beat of the music. And this is a really great example of a program that does that. She has a lot of follow through. She doesn't cut off her movements. She has one of the best Ina Bowers in the business as well. It's just a really beautiful, beautiful program. And I'm not going to be mad if she brings it back next year. All right, into our top 5. In number 5, I have our second Belgian skater on the countdown, and that is Luna Hendricks. And this was her short program to Living for Love by Madonna. And it's interesting because when I originally watched this program, I don't think I noticed until maybe the third or fourth time that I saw this program that there were actually no words in the piece. It's really more of like an instrumental or like the intro part of the song before the lyrics come on. But it just really works. And what really sells this program is the confidence that she brings to this program. She is a great spinner. She has absolutely incredible positions. Of course, she's picking music that most people are not using, and she is doing it very well. I think that she's more successful than Hana Yoshida or Monica Wabe were for also kind of using club kind of music in their short programs. Her costume is very bold. There's no mesh, but there were no costume or wardrobe malfunctions all season. It just sort of works with the whole package that she's bringing. You know, she's dancing in front of the judges, and it's just really exciting from beginning to end. And I think it was just a real standout from the get-go this season. This was a great example of a program that didn't need to grow on me. It didn't need to get better as the season went along. When she came out at Skate America, and it was already like fantastic. And it was really strong for her just all season. All right, number 4 was another one of my surprises, kind of like Rinka Watanabe, and this was Lindsay Thorgren's short program to Windmills of Your Mind. And Lindsay is not somebody who I feel like has had a lot of really great programs in the past. She certainly hasn't had programs that I felt like have really showcased her abilities. She's not somebody that I ever would have considered to be a particularly artistic skater. I mean, in the past, she's skated to the Queen's Gambit or Writing on the Wall, and they've just been fine. But this particular piece, I felt like really, really elevated her a lot this season. And I love the beginning. It's just very, very subtle in like those first 30 seconds or so with the music before the piano kicks in. She has a lot of really intricate and difficult transitions and choreography, but she does a really good job of making them look really easy, and that you don't necessarily realize how difficult the program really is. I feel like if she could add some emotion to it, that the program could be even more special. Like it could take it to another level that it's not currently at. But even so, it was very strong, even with that. She's a very strong spinner. I just feel like this program just shows off her talents really well, where her other programs in the past just have not. I love the knee slides. She shows some extension, some nice artistry. I love the ending spin where her arms are interlaced behind her back in the camel, then they stay interlaced into the spit spin. And then she just shows just tremendous flexibility in that final catch fit spin as well. So I just think that this is a really underrated program. I just gutted for her that she was injured going into nationals and couldn't really showcase what she's done this season. I think it was probably best done at NHK, where she won the short program there. And I hope that going forward that they kind of, like I said in the men's episode with Andrew Torkashev, like take some elements of this into that next program, because this is just a really strong piece that is better than really anything that we've seen them do in the past. All right, and our top 3. So number 3, I have Hyein Lee, so our second Korean lady on the list, and I really, really struggled picking which program of hers I was going to use, because I think most people like Sirens, which is ultimately what I picked, which is her short program. But I also really, really loved her Notre Dame de Paris free skate. And I'm actually not totally sold that it wasn't the better vehicle over this short program. It's just that it was not performed at its best, and at times was performed very poorly, and at times was just performed, you know, underwhelming, but not terrible. But I don't know. I watched both of these programs like 3 times a piece, like trying to determine like which one I was going to pick, and ultimately I did go with the short program. But again, I have to give her kudos for her free skate as well, because I also think that that was a really strong piece. I think the contrast in the music in this short program really makes the program work. The first part is light. It's the music is slightly haunting, but it's almost pretty at the same time. It's just very compelling. And then that last like 45 seconds are just like super dramatic. And she's got great speed, and she really accents the big swells of the music, and it ends with the step sequence instead of a spin. And I think it's just very effective. And she brings a lot of confidence to that step sequence, confidence that we didn't see out of her a lot this season. I just love the footwork in this particular program, and I think it just really sells it and just makes the program special. And that's why it's number 3. Number 2 is last year's number 1, just one off this season, and that is Josephine Talagard in her short program To Wicked Game. Her short program last season was number 1 on the list, and she came up with another great program this season. She just brings she has a lot of maturity that she's bringing onto the ice. And I just think that this is a program that would be incredible whether it had jumps in it or not, whether she landed her jumps or not. It's just this program makes me emotional. It makes me feel something. Like some people, they do their footwork and it just looks like they're checking boxes. But when Josephine does it, everything is so seamless. It's not choppy. It doesn't slow down. She just really captures you from that first beat of the music, and she just really has this it factor that just cannot be taught. And it's just a really, really strong, fantastic program. I'm so glad that she had great showings at both Europeans and Worlds, where, I think people really got a chance to enjoy and really recognize her for the brilliance that she brings to this program. And I also love this cover of Wicked Game. I have a lot of covers of Wicked Game. I have a lot of covers of a lot of different songs. I'm like a cover like fanatic. But this is absolutely my favorite cover of Wicked Game. It's just such a beautiful piece of music. And then when somebody skates beautifully to it, it's just magic. And it is only surpassed by one other program. And it may come to a surprise as to some. And with yet another short program on the list, I went with Amber Glenn and her short program To Heads Will Roll. I just thought this program was just such a great match to Amber's style. To me, she can totally match Luna's confidence at her best with this routine. She's given a lot of phase. She's giving a lot of performance. I think she sets the tone really early with like the drum beats that are in the music. She skates with a lot of speed, and I feel like the music choice just really showcases that. The style just really suits her. It fits her personality. I mean, the jumpsuit is fabulous, whether it was jumpsuit 1.0 with less sparkles or jumpsuit 2.0 with more sparkles. It's just a real crowd pleaser. I mean, it was best at Skate America and at Nationals. Couple of their outings wasn't so successful, largely due to that triple loop. But even when it wasn't, the performance was absolutely still there. She was still at an 11 the whole time, especially in that footwork sequence. It's just a really incredible program. I loved her short program To Hit the Road Jack last year. I didn't think she would be able to top it this season, but somehow she managed to. And I think it really put her on the map a little bit more. It got her over that 70-point barrier internationally. Now she's got a big, big shoes to fill with the program next season, and she's also got a lot of competition domestically as well. But this, I think, really kind of showed that she could compete with some of the best in the world when she is at her best. So that's the top 10. Now let's take a look at my end of the season rankings. So number one was easy. Number two was easy too. Number one is Kaori Sakamoto. Girlfriend didn't lose anything all season. She was fantastic. Season's best scores, just 3 world titles in a row. It's just kind of at a whole new level of dominance that we haven't seen, because even when the Russian ladies were winning everything, it wasn't the same Russian lady that was winning everything. And so she won a third national world title in a row that we haven't seen out of the greats, even like Yuna Kim or Mao Asada or Michelle Kwan. You have to go back to Peggy Fleming to the last time that that's happened. And that's really super impressive. And she didn't make the top 10 list this year. I thought her programs were good. I didn't think they were great, but they were good. She's just absolutely killing it. And number two, I've got Luna Hendricks, who I don't think you could make an argument for anybody else being number two. She won Europeans, won Grand Prix. I think she was second at Grand Prix final. Just she won the short program at Worlds. Really, she had one rough outing, one rough program this season, and that was her free skate at Worlds, which was unfortunate. But other than that, she was super strong this season, and she is number two. Number three, you could really make an argument for either Isabeau or Nina Pinzaroni being here. Ultimately, I went with Isabeau because her highs were higher than Nina's. She won a Grand Prix this season, whereas Nina did not. And she also won a world medal, whereas Nina did not. Unfortunate for Nina that she had the nosebleed situation when it came to Worlds and wasn't able to capitalize on what was a really strong season for her, where she won a medal at Europeans, where she just missed out on medals at Grand Prix final. And like I said, I feel like she was a bit underscored. Next season might be a huge, even more coming out season for her. We'll see. But to me, she was the fourth. And so to me, those were kind of the clear top four. And once you get past them, then you get to a lot more inconsistencies. So in number five, I had Chaeyeon Kim of South Korea. And I think she was sort of a bit forgotten because she didn't make Grand Prix final. But she medaled a lot. Challengers, Grand Prix, just had a rough second Grand Prix, didn't make the final, came back with a vengeance at Four Continents and did well there, and ultimately got, for a lot of people, thought was a surprise medal at Worlds. If you would have told me at the beginning of the season that Chaeyeon Kim got a bronze medal at Worlds, that would not have been surprising to me. If you would have told me that maybe after Grand Prix final, it might have been a little bit more surprising because you didn't really know what to expect kind of based on that last performance. But again, if you think about it, she really just had one poor program, kind of like Luna. She just had that one bad program. I think it was at NHK, and everything else from her really this season was really pretty strong. And then with number six, I went with Hana Yoshida, who again was a bit more up and down, high highs, winning a Grand Prix, medaling at Grand Prix final, and unfortunate for her, just couldn't quite get it together at Worlds, had some issues with the short program and her Grand Prix, and so just not quite the consistency to make it into the top five, but just outside of there at six. At seven, eight, and nine, I have three other Japanese skaters like Team Japan, just super, super strong. So I went with Rinka Watanabe seven. You could make an argument for any number of things, but ultimately, Rinka she did medal at Four Continents. She busted out the triple axel at Four Continents, surprisingly. She really wasn't that bad on the Grand Prix. She didn't have she underwhelmed, but she didn't have just like a disaster outing at all. Rion Tsumiyoshi, I have at 8. I think she had the one Grand Prix where she landed the quad and vaulted herself onto the podium. But again, we just didn't quite see the consistency from her and the rest of her performances to really warrant her being any higher. I have Mona Chiba at 9 because, again, she had a great Four Continents. She had a great Japanese nationals, but a lot of her other international competitions this season, just not her best. But still, when she was great, she was good. When she was on, she was really good. And so put her in the top 10. And then at number 10, I mean, you could make a great argument for Kimi Rapond, but again, she was injured for the first half of the season. Didn't do well in the one Grand Prix that she was in because of that, had to withdraw from the other, wasn't quite back at Europeans, had a really great free skate at Worlds, but just couldn't couldn't make an argument enough to put her in the top 10. Olivia Kaiser had a great Worlds, had a great Europeans, but didn't really have the fall to sort of match it. So ultimately, I went with Amber Glenn at 10, which I think is totally fair. She was in the top 10 at World. She was national champion. She medaled at ESPA. She was second after the short program at Skate America. Obviously, she's like a lot of these other skaters that are on the bottom half of this top 10. A lot of inconsistencies. This is not based on potential. This top 10 is based on results, but results wise, she was kind of up and down like some of these other skaters here. And I think that she certainly had a better season overall than the Kimi Rapons, the Anastasia Gabanovas, those other skaters that would sort of be vying for these spots. So ultimately, she made it into the top 10. So we had a couple of American skaters in the top 10. We had several Japanese skaters, a couple Belgian skaters. And so a pretty interesting lady season that we had this year. And really looking forward to what next season brings. Obviously, how can the current crop of ladies that we saw capitalize? But we've got Alyssa Liu coming back. And so that's a huge story, not just domestically, but internationally. She is someone who has medaled at the World Championships before. Ava Marie Ziegler came on strong really late at NHK and at Four Continents. Can she capitalize on that and make a name for herself in the Grand Prix next season? What does that look like? Brady Tennell says she's healthy and coming back. What does that look like? What do some of these Japanese ladies who weren't able to make Worlds, but we saw really great things out of, and even the ones who didn't make this list, like Wakaba Higuchi, coming off of an injury, just couldn't quite get it together, but she was so close at a lot of times this season. And so I think next season could be super duper interesting in ladies, and it would be nice to see, because I think that they've taken a bit of a backseat to men the last few seasons, and maybe even a dance at times in terms of an entertainment value. But I think when you go back and really look at a lot of the programs this season, you would see that it's really was a pretty strong women's field overall. And so that wraps up the women. It wraps up my coverage of the 23-24 season. So what to look for in the off season? I'll have off season content this season, just like I did last year. So I will do a couple of career look backs again, like I did last year. So if you're newer to the podcast, last year I did a career look back on Sasha Cohen's career, which was really fun, and also Hubble and Donahue. So Hubble and Donahue were together for a long time. They competed for a long time. And so I ended up having 22 different programs that I watched and ranked. And so when I did that last season, I was like, well, if I can do this many programs, I can tackle Michelle Kwan next season. So I have known all year that I was going to be doing a career look back on Michelle Kwan coming for this summer, and I'm super excited about it. She's one of my personal favorite skaters of all time. She has some really, really good programs, and so it's going to be a lot of fun for me to do that podcast. I'm also going to do one on Sui and Han. Hong Kong officially retired this season, so Sui and Han are no more. And so I will also be doing a look back on their career and ranking all of their programs. And they're one of the all-time greats, and that's going to be a lot of fun as well. Also look for a Grand Prix assignments podcast. So that could come out at any point, because we never know exactly when the Grand Prix assignments are going to drop. Last year, I think it was in June. So when that happens, I will definitely drop a podcast with my thoughts on the initial assignments and matchups from that. And then we also have a lot of new potential rules. And so some of those things have already been published in terms of what could potentially be voted on, but nothing is official until June. So once the Congress happens and we know exactly what the new rules are going to look like going forward, I will have a podcast on what that looks like for each discipline. So you can look for those episodes coming in the off season, most likely in June and July. Probably will be taking May off from podcasting, but definitely subscribe to the podcast so when one does hit your podcatcher that you see it. Always, I want to thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast, not just this episode, but really all season. It's just so fantastic that to get the feedback and reviews and messages and responses and all those things from you guys, and know that people are listening to the podcast. When you start a podcast, you never know if anybody's ever going to hear what you have to say, if they even care what you have to say. And so it's been fun for me, and I'm glad that a lot of you are enjoying it as well. And as always, you can find me on all the socials at Ice Skate Podcast. You can send me a line via email at thecuttingedgepod@gmail.com, and you can also subscribe, or comment to any of the videos on YouTube as well. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I look forward to being back in your podcatcher before you know it. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.